Rimuru x Arifureta. Fragments of Soul to be the Strongest by Rimu_Kai. Chapter 18. What the FK. The air was thick with tension, a suffocating weight pressing down on them as the monstrous shadow loomed overhead. The black dragon's wings stretched wide, each powerful beat of them stirring up gusts of wind that sent dirt and debris scattering. Its body was covered in thick, obsidian-black scales that gleamed like polished stone under the fading sunlight. The beast's fiery golden eyes scanned the group with a predator's gaze, radiating pure malice. Then, it roared. The deafening sound shook the ground beneath their feet, a bone-rattling, primal declaration of dominance. The sheer force of it sent the weaker students stumbling, some even falling to their knees in terror. Aiko's face turned deathly pale as she covered her ears, trembling. The two male students were frozen in place, their bodies locked in fear. Nana and Teiko, though frightened, gritted their teeth, trying not to show weakness. Will Kadeta, however, reacted the worst. The young noble's face twisted in sheer horror, his entire body shaking uncontrollably as he instinctively stumbled back, tripping over a loose rock. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed onto the ground, wide-eyed and gasping for breath. This is the monster that slaughtered my party," he choked out, his voice barely more than a whisper. His hands clutched his arms, his entire body trembling violently. He was reliving his nightmare all over again. Aiko turned to Rimuru and Hajime, desperation in her eyes. "We need to run, that thing is loud." Hajime interrupted, cracking his neck as he rolled his shoulders. His red eyes gleamed with challenge. "It just roared at us." Rimuru smirked, folding his arms. "Yeah, I noticed." He turned to Hajime. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Hajime's grin widened. Obviously. Both brothers turned toward the dragon, completely ignoring the fear-stricken students behind them. "Let's see who takes it down first," Hajime said, pulling out Donner. Rimuru chuckled, stretching his neck. "Try to keep up." The battle had begun. Hajime wasted no time, immediately activating his boots and launching himself forward with incredible speed. His gun roared to life as he fired specialized rounds at the dragon's head. The bullets hit their mark, but the thick scales deflected them with ease. TCH. As expected, normal rounds won't cut it. Hajime quickly switched to his railgun. At the same time, Yu raised her hand, crimson lightning crackling in her palm. Without even uttering a spell, a torrent of electricity surged forward, striking the dragon's wing with enough force to make it stagger midair. Shay joined the attack, her hammer glowing as she activated gravity magic. With a single leap, she propelled herself high above the battlefield, spinning her weapon before swinging it down with monstrous strength. The air cracked as the hammer made contact with the dragon's side, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The beast roared in rage, its golden eyes blazing with fury. With a single beat of its wings, it sent out a shockwave that forced Hajime, Yu, and Shay to retreat momentarily. Then, without hesitation, it opened its maw, gathering a massive ball of searing flames. The enormous fireball shot forward, aimed directly at the defenseless group behind them, Aiko, the students, and Will. Screams filled the air as they braced for their end. And then, the attack vanished. Rimuru had merely raised his hand and slapped the fireball aside, erasing it from existence as if swatting away an annoying insect. Dead silence followed. The students, Aiko, and even Will stood in complete shock, their eyes wide as they processed what had just happened. One of the male students stammered. "He just erased it," Nana whispered, mouth slightly agape. "Monster," Teiko muttered under her breath, her expression unreadable. Even Aiko was at a loss for words, her face frozen in an expression of sheer disbelief. Meanwhile, Shizuku and Elena only chuckled, watching Rimuru with pride. "You're not even trying, are you?" Shizuku teased. Elena smirked, leaning into Rimuru slightly. "Should we be concerned about your control? You weren't exactly gentle last night, after all." Rimuru let out a chuckle, shooting Elena a sideways glance. Now, let's not get distracted. There's still a dragon to deal with." The female students overheard their conversation and turned red. "Oh God, they're like monsters among monsters. Even situation like this," Teiko whispered, her face heating up. "They're not even hiding it anymore," one of the other girls muttered. Aiko, meanwhile, buried her face in her hands, completely embarrassed by how openly shameless Rimuru was acting. While Hajime and his party continued their relentless assault, Rimuru simply stood there, waiting for the perfect moment. And then it came. The black dragon, despite its incredible durability, had begun to use magic had damaged one of its wings, limiting its aerial mobility. Shei's hammer strikes had weakened its body. Hajime's railgun had left scorch marks along its scales. The beast was still standing, still roaring defiantly, but the battle had taken its toll. That was when Rimuru moved. In an instant, he disappeared from where he stood. Before anyone could process what had happened, a deafening boom filled the air. Rimuru had reappeared above the dragon's head, his palm raised. And then, with a single, casual slap, he struck the dragon's skull. The sheer force of the impact sent the beast crashing into the ground, the earth trembling from the impact. The once mighty dragon now lay before them, dazed, its body twitching slightly. It was not fully unconscious, but it was clear that the fight had been completely one-sided. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Then, as if on cue, Hajime let out a loud sigh. Well, that happened. You nodded. Overkill. Shei blinked. Wow, just like that. The students, meanwhile, could only stare, jaws practically touching the ground. Will had completely frozen, his body stiff as a board as he slowly turned his head to look at Rimuru. The sheer shock on his face was almost comical. Aiko was no better, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. Rimuru, on the other hand, merely dusted off his hands. Well, that was fun. Elena sighed. And here I thought you were going to wait for the best moment. Shizuku smirked. That was the best moment. You should know by now that Rimuru likes to make an entrance. The two of them then each grabbed one of Rimuru's arms, leaning against him seductively. Elena traced a finger along his shoulder. So, how should we reward you for your incredible display of strength? Shizuku chuckled. Maybe we'll let you decide this time. The female students nearly fainted from how bold they were. Meanwhile, Hajime sighed, shaking his head. Seriously, get a room. Shei pouted. You're just jealous. Hajime flicked her forehead. Shut up. As the black dragon lay motionless before them, it was clear that the battle was over. But something told them this wasn't the end. Rimuru, Hajime, Shei, Yu, Shizuku, and Elena slowly approached the black dragon, its massive body still sprawled across the ground. The students, Aiko, and Will Cadetta remained several meters behind, hesitant to get any closer. Will clenched his fists, glaring at the unmoving beast. Kill it, he ordered, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. Rimuru rolled his eyes. No need. Hajime and the others nodded in agreement, showing no signs of hostility. Will turned to them, his expression twisted with disbelief. No need? That thing is dangerous. It already killed my party. How can you just? Rimuru shot him a cold glance, and Will instinctively shut his mouth. For a moment, silence lingered. Then, Hajime suddenly seemed deep in thought, his brows furrowing. Rimuru, noticing his expression, raised an eyebrow. What's on your mind? Hajime smirked. Just wait. Without further explanation, he pulled out a long, thick iron rod from his treasure trove. Rimuru's expression instantly changed. Hajime casually walked around the dragon's massive body, making his way to its rear. He stopped, inspecting the sleeping creature before raising the iron rod. A mischievous glint sparkled in his crimson eyes as he spoke. Ever heard the saying, dragons are invincible when they sleep? He chuckled, gripping the rod tightly. Well, if you want to hurt a dragon, aim for the black ones. They have the best scales. Rimuru's eyes widened in horror as realization hit him like a freight train. Hajime. Wait. That's Aphima. Before he could finish his warning, Hajime plunged the iron rod deep into the dragon's sensitive region. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Kyaa. The ear-splitting, unmistakably feminine scream echoed through the entire valley. Everyone froze. Shizuku's jaw dropped. What did I just hear? Elena covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Wait, was that? Yu blinked, unfazed, but slightly intrigued. Shei, on the other hand, clutched her stomach, struggling to hold back laughter. Peeved, Hajime, did you just? Aiko and the students. Absolute shock. Nana and Teiko were bright red, struggling to process what just happened. Some of the male students looked horrified, while others looked away, sweating profusely. Aiko had completely broken down, holding her head in both hands as if trying to erase what she had just witnessed from her memory. As for Will Cadetta, he stood there, pale as a ghost, his entire body trembling. What kind of monster are you people? Meanwhile, the black dragon writhed on the ground, her massive body thrashing as she let out a mix of pained and pleasured cries. Take it out. Take it out. Please, Shay, still barely holding back her laughter, asked the most obvious question. Wait, you're a girl? Rimuru sighed, rubbing his temples. That was obvious though. The dragon managed to nod frantically, still thrashing from the violation she had just experienced. Shizuku and Elena turned to Rimuru, crossing their arms. And how exactly did you know she was a female? Shizuku asked, narrowing her eyes. Elena leaned closer. Yeah, Rimuru. Care to explain? Rimuru looked away, avoiding eye contact. Anyway, Hajime, you really made a bad move there. Hajime, unfazed, tilted his head. What? It worked, didn't it? The dragon twitched, her body trembling as she whimpered. Please, take it out, it hurts, but it also feels good at the same time. Silence. Then, Shizuku, Elena, and you all smirked knowingly. Trust me, Shizuku said, crossing her arms. We know exactly how you feel. Elena chuckled, leaning into Rimuru's side. Yeah, we understand that sensation all too well. Yu simply nodded, her gaze directed toward Hajime. More, actually. The female students gasped, their faces burning red at the implications. Aiko let out a defeated whimper. What has my class become? Will, meanwhile, looked like he was about to pass out from sheer mental overload. Rimuru sighed, shaking his head. All right. Let's move on. Why did you attack us? The dragon, still twitching, took a deep breath. I was being controlled by someone else. Will scoffed, his fear momentarily replaced by rage. Lies, just kill that thing already, what are you waiting for? Rimuru's eyes darkened, and an unsettling aura surrounded him. His voice dropped to a dangerous tone. Choose your words carefully, Will Cadetta. His gaze bore into the noble. I may not be one right now, but part of me is still a true dragon. Silence. Will's face went pale. The students tensed. Even Aiko looked completely lost. What? Nana muttered. A true dragon. Teiko whispered, eyes wide. Shizuku and Elena exchanged glances but remained silent. They had suspected something, but this was confirmation. Rimuru sighed. Forget it. Anyway. Yu stepped forward, inspecting the dragon closely. Are you one of the Ryujin? The dragon gritted her teeth. I'll answer that, but first, take this thing out of my ass. Hajime, unfazed, smirked. Oh, but I just put it in. Then, without warning, he shoved it deeper. AHHNN. Everyone stopped. Again. Shizuku, Elena, and you all visibly twitched. The dragon let out a strained moan, her body quivering as her massive tail slammed against the ground. Fine. I'll answer. Just, take it out already. Hajime smirked. Nope. Not happening. Rimuru pinched the bridge of his nose. Hajime, stop playing with her. The dragon twitched, her voice a whimpering plea. Please. Shizuku finally spoke up. You said you were being controlled. The dragon, still flustered, nodded. Why yeah, it was a black mage. When I tried to take a nap, some shady-looking human showed up and started chanting spells. Hajime crossed his arms. So, you let some random mage cast spells on you while sleeping? You didn't think that was a bad idea? The dragon huffed. Hey. Usually, dragons are invincible when we sleep. Alright. I didn't think something like this would happen. Rimuru and Hajime both sighed at the same time. Yu, however, spoke up. She's telling the truth. Hajime glanced at her. How do you know? Yu's crimson eyes glowed slightly. She's one of the Ryujin. Besides, dragons are prideful. They don't lie easily. The others processed this information, their reactions mixed. Aiko and the students were still struggling to function after what they had just witnessed. Shizuku and Elena smirked at Rimuru, who was now visibly avoiding their gazes. Hajime, meanwhile, looked down at the dragon, still squirming beneath him. His boot pressing against its massive black scales. The once mighty beast, now pinned and powerless, growled in frustration. Haay, the dragon spoke suddenly, a deep but oddly feminine voice laced with irritation. Can anyone take this damn thing off me? It's drained all my mana. Hajime arched an eyebrow. So what? The dragon huffed. Imagine a breathtakingly beautiful girl, and that thing burrowing inside her ass. Just imagine what would happen. A collective shiver ran down the spines of the female students. Their hands instinctively covered their backsides, their faces pale with horror. Meanwhile, Hajime smirked, his orange eyes gleaming with amusement. Honestly, I'm a little curious to see that. Rimuru let out a deep sigh, shaking his head. Just take it off, Hajime. The dragon groaned, shifting slightly. Be gentle, all right. Slowly, carefully. Ignoring the plea, Hajime drove it in deeper before forcefully yanking the parasite out. The dragon let out a loud, sultry moan. Oh gods. You brute. At least warn me before going deeper like that. Silence. The group stood frozen. You blinked. Pervert dragon. Shay's rabbit ears twitched, her face burning. That was suggestive. Shizuku and Alina's eyes narrowed in suspicion, both unconsciously stepping closer to Rimuru. Aiko covered her face, refusing to believe what she had just witnessed. The students behind her were either slack-jawed or actively trying to bleach their memories. Hajime, unfazed, dropped the slimy parasite to the ground and wiped his hand off on his coat. Get up and speak. The dragon's body glowed, shifting and shrinking. In an instant, the massive beast was gone, replaced by a strikingly beautiful woman. She had flowing black hair, golden eyes filled with mischief, and a voluptuous figure barely concealed by a scandalously tight black outfit. She sat on the ground, rubbing her flushed, reddened buttocks with one hand. Ooh, even though I said to be gentle, you were so rough with me. She let out a soft, teasing moan, her sultry gaze locked onto Hajime. The students collectively took a step back. Hajime pinched the bridge of his nose. Who the hell are you? The woman grinned, rising gracefully to her feet. Nice to meet you all. I am Tio Claris of the Ryujin clan. She gave an elegant bow, but the way her large chest bounced in the process made the situation anything but formal. I see, Rimuru mused, eyeing her curiously. And what brings you to a place like this? Tio placed a hand on her hip. Well, a few months ago, my clan discovered that so-called hero and his team summoned. We were curious, so they sent me to investigate. She sighed dramatically. While on my way, I decided to take a nap on a hilltop, as one does. Rimuru smirked. As one does. Tio ignored his teasing and continued. Then, a black mage approached me. I was too tired to bother with him, so I ignored him. Apparently, he did not like that. Hajime narrowed his eyes. What happened? Tio sighed. He used some sort of mind control magic on me, but I managed to resist most of it. While under his influence, I overheard something interesting. He wants to prove himself stronger than the hero. And he has an army of monsters under his control, currently marching toward Old Town. Aiko gasped. Old Town? The students immediately began murmuring amongst themselves. That mage, it might be Shimizu, one student said hesitantly. Another nodded. Yeah, he's been missing for almost 2 weeks. But we can't be sure, Aiko said, looking troubled. Rimuru crossed his arms. And how many monsters are we talking about? Tio tilted her head. Oh, around 60,000? Azra's voice purred in Rimuru's mind. Master, this is perfect. So many souls ripe for harvest. Your evolution is waiting. Rimuru smirked. Absolutely, out loud, he murmured, isn't that just perfect? Everyone turned to him in confusion. Aiko frowned. Rimuru, what are you talking about? That's an army heading for a town? We have to stop them? Hajime sighed. Not happening. We have a mission, and we're heading back. Rimuru turned to him. Hey, Hajime. Want to get stronger? Hajime raised an eyebrow. Obviously. Then gather 30,000 souls, Rimuru said. Leave the rest to me. Hajime was silent for a moment before exhaling. TCH. If you have a way to make me stronger, then fine. Tio suddenly stepped closer, her golden eyes glinting with interest. Excuse me, but could you all introduce yourselves? Properly, Hajime sighed. Hajime Nagumo. Yu stepped forward, pressing against Hajime's arm. Yu, Hajime's lover. Shay bounced beside them, hugging Hajime's other arm. Shay Haulia, also Hajime's lover. Tio's eyes gleamed with amusement. Oh my, how bold. Rimuru smirked. Rimuru Nagumo, soon to be a demon lord. Dead silence. Aiko paled. The demon lord. Well, gulped. That's a joke, right? The students looked at each other in horror. Hajime narrowed his eyes. TCH, figures. Shay blinked. Wait, you're really going to be a demon lord? Yu just tilted her head. Interesting. Elena and Shizuku stepped beside Rimuru, both smirking. I'm Elena, the blonde purred, queen of that demon lord. Shizuku flicked her hair. Shizuku Yagashi, also his queen. Tio whistled. Oh ho, that's quite the claim. Elena and Shizuku both crossed their arms under their chests, glaring at her. Tio stepped forward, placing a hand on her wide hip. I like this group. Very much, in fact, she licked her lips. I think I'll join you all. Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Oh, Tio grinned. And in return, I shall offer my body for you to do with as you please. The reactions were instant. Aiko choked. Excuse me? Will turned bright red. Did she just? The students were losing their minds. Shay's ears twitched violently. What kind of woman just says that? Yu simply sighed. Pervert dragon. Shizuku and Elena both narrowed their eyes, stepping closer to Rimuru. Rimuru chuckled. Hey. I like her. Shizuku and Elena immediately snapped toward him. Excuse me? Tio smirked, stepping right up to Rimuru and running a finger down his chest. Then, it's settled. I'm yours. Elena and Shizuku scowled. Hajime groaned, rubbing his temples as he stared at the black dragon woman in front of him. TCH. What a pain. Tio seductively as she gazed at Rimuru. Then, with a teasing glint in her golden eyes, she spoke. Then from now on, I shall call you master. Elena and Shizuku immediately shot Rimuru sharp looks. Wait, what? Elena snapped, grabbing Rimuru's arm possessively. Why are you calling him that? Shizuku folded her arms, narrowing her eyes. You just met him, and suddenly he's, master, what's with that? Tio turned to Hajime next, her smirk growing wider. And you, young master, I haven't forgotten about you. Hajime raised a brow. Young what? Why are you calling me that? Tio giggled, covering her mouth with her sleeve. Fufu, I cannot call young master to someone older than even myself. Now can I? She licked her lips. So, young master, that is you. Yu tilted her head. How old are you? Tio gave a playful shrug. Around 500 years or so. Yu frowned. Then why do you call Rimuru older than you? He's only 17. Tio's grin grew even wider. Is he, though? She turned to Rimuru, eyes filled with knowing amusement. Rimuru sighed and rubbed the back of his head. I told you guys already. I'm almost 190 million years old. The entire group went silent. Aiko, Nana, Teiko, and the rest of the students froze, their eyes widening in disbelief. Wait, Aiko stammered, trying to process what she had just heard. Did you just say, 190 million? That's impossible, one of the male students muttered, looking pale. But Rimuru was 17 in his our world, just like us, another student protested. Shizuku and Elena exchanged glances. They had heard Rimuru say something like this before, but it was just so absurd that they had brushed it off. But now, hearing it from Tio, someone completely unrelated to their group, it became harder to deny. You were actually telling the truth? Shizuku whispered, staring at Rimuru in disbelief. Hajime clicked his tongue. That's insane. Yu and Shay both looked at Rimuru thoughtfully, as if reevaluating everything they knew about him. Tio, meanwhile, giggled mischievously. My, a man with such a long life and so much experience. No wonder your mere gaze makes me feel as if my clothes are about to melt off my body. Elena's eye twitched. Oi. Shizuku cracked her knuckles. Do you want to die? But Tio ignored them and turned her attention back to Rimuru and Hajime, her eyes burning with lustful curiosity. Master, young master, I wonder, with all that age and experience, just how skilled are you two in certain matters? Rimuru sighed, shaking his head. Why do I feel like this conversation is taking a dangerous turn? Hajime, as usual, was much blunter. Shut up, you perverted dragon. Tio pouted dramatically. Oh, young master, don't be so cruel, she leaned closer, whispering seductively. If you were just a bit gentler, I might have called you daddy instead. Hajime's face twitched in irritation, while Rimuru nearly choked on air. Elena and Shizuku snapped, stop corrupting him. Shay and Yu, meanwhile, turned to Hajime with deadly smiles. Hajime, Yu muttered, her red eyes narrowing. Shay clenched her fists. You aren't thinking of actually accepting this perverted dragon, right? Hajime clicked his tongue, annoyed. Hell no, Elena pulled Rimuru's face toward her, forcing him to look away from Tio. And you better not be entertaining any ideas. Shizuku sighed, doing the same from the other side. Honestly, how did we end up with a perverted dragon joining us? Rimuru groaned. All right. Let's just focus on the real problem here. He crossed his arms. We still have a monster army to deal with. Tio, of course, didn't let up. Oh? But master, such as yourself doesn't need to worry about such trivial matters? She stepped closer, her ample chest pressing against Rimuru's arm. Or, would you rather focus on something more pleasurable? Shizuku and Elena nearly exploded. Back off! They shouted in unison, prying Tio away from Rimuru. Tio chuckled. Fufu, jealousy is such a cute look on you too. Hajime sighed in irritation. Alright, enough of this, let's go. Tio hummed playfully. Master, young master, I'm feeling quite tired after all that excitement. Won't one of you carry me? Rimuru raised a brow. Not happening. Hajime sighed and grabbed Tio by the leg, and then proceeded to drag her across the ground like a sack of potatoes. Ah, young master is so rough with me, Tio moaned exaggeratedly, but I like it. Aiko and the students looked horrified. What, is she? One of the female students whispered. She's worse than Shay, another muttered. Shay, offended, puffed her cheeks. I'm not that bad. With everyone finally settled, Hajime summoned his vehicle, a large, rugged, van-like construct. Hajime took the driver's seat, Yu sat beside him, and Shay squeezed in next to her. Aiko, Nana, Teiko, and the other students took the back seats on the left side, while Rimuru sat on the right. Elena and Shizuku immediately clung to Rimuru's arms, glaring at him. You are not allowed to move, Elena declared. Shizuku huffed. Consider this your punishment. Tio sat next to Shizuku, smirking. Fufu, such possessiveness. You two are truly devoted, aren't you? Elena shot her a glare. Shut up. Tio merely giggled. Oh, master, your very presence makes me wet. Rimuru nearly slammed his head against the seat. Tio. Enough. Hajime, annoyed, started the vehicle. Let's just go. As they drove off, Yu suddenly leaned over and sank her fangs into Hajime's neck, drinking his blood. Hey. Hajime scowled. Yu pulled away, licking her lips. Bad Hajime. Shay nodded in agreement. Yeah, you're being too nice to that perverted dragon. Meanwhile, Elena was digging her nails into Rimuru's arm, not enough to hurt, but enough to express her frustration. You're way too friendly with her, she muttered. Shizuku sighed and forcibly turned Rimuru's head away from Tio. Just don't look at her. Tio, of course, smirked knowingly. My, such fierce women. Master, you truly are blessed. Rimuru groaned. Can we just get to the damn town already? Hajime smirked. Hold on tight. Here we go. With that, the group sped off toward Old Town, tensions high, emotions running wild, and Tio being Tio. == TO be continued ==